You watch them on Sunday mornings here and on the other networks, the politicians armed with their talking points that don't always reflect the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. There's been a lot of chatter lately about whether the program should fact-check their guests after the interviews, an idea that began with NYU journalism professor Jay Rosen. Jake Tapper, the interim host of ABC's This Week, has arranged for the website PolitiFact to check up on his program and talked about it with Stephen Colbert.
The truth of the matter is that when you do a show, as you know, you don't have research in front of you, and fact-checking can be a little bit more complicated. Senators don't come on...
I don't care about facts. I gut check my show. I say gut. I say gut. Gut, does that feel true to you? And Gut says, yes, it does, Stephen. Let's get a grilled cheese sandwich.
I think this is a terrific idea, the actual fact-checking, not the part about Colbert's gut. And today we're stepping up to fact-check all 5 Sunday programs. We're the politicians saying things that were true, partially true, or just plain not true. The Democrats' financial regulation bill has been the hot issue this past week, and on NBC's Meet the Press, David Gregory sat down with Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner.
There are some on Wall Street who have worked with this administration, then some who are critical, who say the view from you, from the president and others in the administration, largely driven by politics, is it's open season on the banks, it's beat up on the banks time. Is that the smart thing to do politically or for the economy?
There's no politics in this. This is not a partisan thing. This is a basic proposition. Things that are important.
It's not good politics to beat up on the banks?
I don't know if it's good politics or not.
That's partially true. The administration is undoubtedly doing what it thinks is right with this legislation, but of course there's politics involved. President Obama has repeatedly criticized huge Wall Street bonuses and blamed the big investment banks for resisting reform, and everyone knows they are fat targets because of public anger over the last banking bailout.
So, if these folks want a fight, it's a fight I'm ready to have. And my resolve is only strengthened when I see a return to old practices at some of the very firms fighting reform. When I see soaring profits and obscene bonuses at some of the very firms claiming that they can't lend more to small businesses.
So for Geithner to say he doesn't know whether the bill is good politics or not really stretches the bounds of credibility. On CNN's State of the Union, Candy Crowley asked Mitch McConnell to respond to the president's criticism that the Senate Minority Leader isn't being factual when he says the Democratic legislation provides an incentive for future bank bailouts.
Right off the bat, the president says you're being deceptive in describing this bill.
Well, Candy ought to talk to his own Treasury Secretary, who agrees with me, as well as the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, that there is a bailout fund in the bill that was reported out of the banking committee, the partisan bill that came out of committee on a party line vote.
But that bill doesn't.
I don't think that's in dispute.
But that bailout is funded by the banks themselves, is it not? It's not a taxpayer bailout.
Well, Robert Reich, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Labor, says it's a bailout fund.
That last part is not true. Robert Reich said the bill preserves the possibility that the Fed could launch another bank bailout, but that, he says on his blog, has nothing to do with the liquidation fund. Reich now writes, when Mitch McConnell has to misquote me to find evidence he's telling the truth, he is desperate. No, Senator, I never said Dodd's finance reform bill contains a bailout fund. McConnell's other points are true. A Washington Post editorial said McConnell is partially right about the fund for failing banks. It wouldn't be taxpayer money, but, quote, of course the big banks would find some way to pass that cost along. And McConnell is right that Geithner himself warned months ago that such a fund would create an expectation that the government would rescue insolvent banks. Sometimes politicians make sweeping statements that sound good on TV but crumble upon closer inspection. That's what the newest Senator Scott Brown did with Bob Schieffer on CBS's Face the Nation.
Since I've been here, I've heard zero talk about jobs.
Zero talk? That is not true. What about the jobs bill that Congress passed 2 months ago and Obama signed into law? You remember, Senator Brown, the one you voted for. Brown also threw out a very specific statistic about the financial regulation bill.
It's going to cost potentially 25,000 to 35,000 jobs. And
well, now, wait a minute, Senator. How can you say that?
Well, I can say it very clearly because the regulations that they're trying to reel in with some of the risky hedging that bets are doing also affects companies like I just described in Massachusetts. It's very clear.
There is no evidence to support that figure, and Brown's office refused to provide any, despite repeated requests for comment. So that is untrue until proven otherwise. Another senator also tossed out an important economic figure involving the Obama administration. That would be John McCain, when Chris Wallace asked him on Fox News Sunday about Obama saying the Tea Party protesters need to realize that he has cut taxes.
The president says Tea Partiers should say thank you.
Well, that's probably one of the more motivating statements for the Tea Partiers. The fact is that taxes have gone up, they're going to go up, and they are going to violate the president's pledge as far as single people making $250,000 and $200,000. The taxes are going up. We all know that.
That is not true. Federal taxes have not gone up. Obama is right when he says he has cut taxes for 95% of Americans. As for the future, Obama said during the campaign he'd end the Bush tax cuts for those making over $250,000 a year. He now wants to raise capital gains taxes, but again, for folks earning over $250,000. Now, the health care bill does contain provisions such as a fee on those who refuse to get insurance that could be described as a tax on those earning under $250,000. But that won't take effect until 2014. And finally, Bill Clinton sat down with Tapper on This Week, and the 42nd president was asked about his successor's decision on a Supreme Court nominee.
What advice would you give President Obama? Because Republicans are saying he's not including them in this.
I think it'll be very difficult to just outright block a Supreme Court nominee that's otherwise qualified, especially after the Democrats confirmed or allowed a vote on Clarence Thomas and Justice Scalia and a lot of other people who were Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts.
That's true. Senate Democrats did allow a vote on John Roberts, but only after publicly weighing the idea of filibustering President Bush's nominee. As for a nominee that's otherwise qualified, as Clinton put it, Senator Barack Obama said that both John Roberts and Sam Alito were clearly qualified and voted against them. Now, this sort of fact-checking takes time and sometimes gets bogged down in details. I bet this isn't the most exciting television segment you've ever watched, but we all ought to do more of it, especially online, as a way of holding politicians accountable. Maybe that will make them more cautious about what they say on Sunday morning.